I just saw where someone posted on X, Twitter, whatever it is, someone with quite a few followers. They posted that Tucker Carlson is actually not just picking random people to interview, but he was trying to create a new expert class to take over the Republican Party against the will of the voters. Anyway, all I can say is, Tucker, if that's what you're trying to do, create a new expert class. Well, all I can say is, thank you. I mean, seriously, thank you. If that's not what you're trying to do, would you please consider doing it? We need some experts. We need some honest people we can trust. I just read a comment on one of my videos that they said I didn't know near as much as I thought I did, and that I needed to look up the Dunning-Kruger effect, which that's someone doesn't know a lot about a topic, so they don't realize how complex it is, so therefore they think they know a lot more about it than they actually do. Okay, I thought that was hilarious because I am well aware of how little I know. Okay, the problem is I can't trust anybody else. Okay, 2009, I developed some serious health problems. Okay, I needed an expert to say, hey, Tom, you've got alpha-gal syndrome, which is allergic to red meat. Okay, I didn't have that. I had a doctor. Okay, and I still remember him laughing the day I went in and told him I needed to be checked for that. Yeah. But he quit laughing. I guess he remembered how many times I had been right about my health problems more than he had been, which he never got anything right. Okay, I needed an expert 3 months before that when my gallbladder quit working to say, hey, Tom, you've got some serious autoimmune stuff going on and it's caused your nervous system to go haywire, and that's why your gallbladder just quit working, and that's why you can't keep food down and you can't eat anything and you're slowly starving to death. That's why you lost 40 pounds in a month. I didn't have that expert. I had a doctor. Okay, so yeah, I'm well aware of our need for experts. I'm also well aware of how few and far between they are. Okay, and all of that stuff I just said, I had to figure all that out myself while I was sick. And if I hadn't, I don't know that I would be here today. And at the same time, I really could have used some financial and economic experts to say, hey, government, y'all need to quit doing what you're doing, or we're going to have the great financial crisis, and let's prevent that. Or at the very least, for them to say, hey, everybody, the government's not listening to us, so everything's fixing to crash, so you need to prepare for this right now. That way, 5 days after I had my gallbladder surgery, when I was still in really poor health, I wouldn't go back to work and then get laid off that day because the plant was shutting down. Yeah, I got to experience some serious, significant health issues at the exact same time that we had the financial crisis going on, and that was the low for me as far as the financial crisis. That was the bottom. Okay, yeah, we need some experts. And not knowing as much as I would like to, not being nearly as sharp as I'd like to be, not being nearly as sharp as I was before that, I lost a lot of IQ points during that time. And I didn't have many to spare. I'm well aware of just how much I've slipped personally. I'd like to have some experts. And thankfully, there are some out there. Okay, so Dr. Thomas Platt Mills. All right, that's one of the people that figured out that there's a link between tick bites and then the allergy to red meat, which he figured out with his team and some others that's alpha-gal syndrome. Okay, that expert might have saved my life because that's how I figured out what I had going on. I realized I was allergic to ticks now, so I started researching that, and then that's when I stumbled into the alpha-gal syndrome, and the light bulb just went off for me. Okay, that's what I got. Experts are important. And there were some people that I had decided were financial experts prior to the crash in '08 that I listened to them. Okay, these weren't mainstream experts. There was nobody on CNBC or NBC or CBS or CNN. There was nobody there saying, hey, the economy is about to implode. Get ready. All those people, they were just talking about the stock market and saying, buy, buy, buy. Now, if you ask them about it now, they'll say, oh, no, you misunderstood. We weren't saying B-U-Y, we were saying B-Y-E. Yeah. Well, again, there were some unrecognized experts that thankfully I'd listened to them, plus just putting together what they said with my own observations. I was prepared when it crashed. And thankfully I was. So there in '09, when all of a sudden I'm unemployed, I'm in really bad health. I still hadn't figured out I've got alpha-gal syndrome yet. I still got a lot of autoimmune problems, and I was able to focus on recovering. And I wasn't completely wiped out financially, and I wasn't bankrupt from it, and I wasn't homeless. Experts are important. Okay, so I'm looking around for experts. Now I'm looking for experts. And I thought it was absolutely hilarious at that post because one of the experts they picked is somebody I follow. Well, I've noticed Tucker has a habit of interviewing the people that I'm already following as my experts. So yeah, hey, Tucker, get that expert class thing going. You're picking some good people for it. And what I realized though, the problem isn't the experts. The problem we have right now is our institutions. The institutions are what determine who the experts are. The official experts. Okay, so the events with that little virus thing over the past 5 years. You heard the official narrative over and over and over and over on all of your mainstream media outlets. Okay, looking back now in hindsight, how many of their experts got anything right? And I have to be really careful talking about this because if I say too many keywords in this video, you will never see this video. It'll get censored. It won't be obvious, but it will. Okay, so even now we've got tech companies deciding what experts you can actually hear. And so we've people like Dr. Robert Malone. Yep, that probably got this video demoted a little bit right there just mentioning him, but go look him up on Wikipedia. It's hilarious. It says he was the first person to achieve this with this technology, and then the very next line, and he's guilty of misinformation and saying this isn't safe or effective. Who at Wikipedia is qualified to say the guy that invented this stuff doesn't know what he's talking about? Who at YouTube or Google? Okay, so the institutions are what control which experts you can hear. And okay, professional classes. All of these institutions are interconnected. So professional classes, they have professional organizations. So there's organizations that they oversee doctors, and doctors being licensed, and they oversee lawyers and architects and engineers and everybody. That serious stuff that actually matters where you need competent people. Okay, so if a doctor is guilty of misconduct, ethical problems or something like that, that same organization can make sure he's no longer able to practice medicine. Okay, so they make sure we get good, competent doctors. They make sure they fly right and straight and continue their education and all of that stuff. And again, same with every profession. Well, those professions, they're tied in with universities. Okay, so they're working with the universities as far as, what's offered or what's required for the curriculum for whatever major and field and all that stuff. What are the competencies they need to be working on? And then you've got people from these organizations they're usually in the universities. There's a lot of crossover. They're working there. All right, so you've got doctors that are professional doctors at universities teaching, and then you've got overlap with government there. Okay, so the government passes laws that gives these professional organizations a monopoly on whatever field. Okay, so if I go out and I practice medicine without a license, the government's going to arrest me because I didn't go through this organization and get their approval. Okay, and when it's working great, hey, it's great. We need the institutions for this. And this is the absolute simplest, best example I can think of right here for the importance of institutions. Churches. Okay, anybody can call themselves a preacher and go preach, and I think there's a little paperwork you got to do, but it ain't much. Okay, freedom of religion, and I can call whatever I want Christianity, and there's nobody to say, hey, that's not Christianity. There's no formal institution there to say that's a cult. That's what they're teaching's not biblical. And that's how we end up with Jim Jones. Okay, and for those of you who don't know who that is, he's where the term "don't drink the Kool-Aid" originated, because he had his followers drink the Kool-Aid and it's poisoned and killed over 900 people. Okay, so an actual proper institution for religion, for Christianity here in the U.S., could have told all of his followers, hey, what he's doing is not Christianity. And if they had faith and trust in that institution, they would have abandoned him. Okay, and at one time we had that in Christianity. It was called the Catholic Church. They had a monopoly on religion in Europe. Okay, so any priest that was out there, he was a Catholic priest, and he reported to someone above him and then someone above them. And if he got out there and started preaching things that weren't biblical, they could say, no, stop that. And if he didn't, they could excommunicate him. He was no longer a part of the church, no longer allowed to be a priest. Okay, so the church served a valuable role for that. Problem was the church became corrupt. Not everybody in it. There were some amazing priests at that time and throughout history in the Catholic Church, still are. But the leadership at that time became corrupt, and they were allowing things that shouldn't happen, and it's because the Catholic Church wasn't just a religious organization, it was also a political organization, and anytime you mix politics with religion, politics is going to corrupt the religious part of it. That's why we had the First Amendment and separation of church and state. It wasn't to keep church out of government, it was to keep government out of church and prevent government from corrupting the churches. Okay, well, again, leadership became corrupt. Well, then finally you get enough priests that say, this just ain't right. And one of them finally speaks up, and, he nails this little thing to the church door, and Protestant Reformation, which is a rebellion, civil war within the church is what that amounted to. And then because the church was also a political organization, then we've got all kind of wars breaking out all over Europe, and it's a mess. Okay, so anyway, right now we could really use in Christianity an institution, a Christian institution that people have faith in to say, hey, that's not biblical. But we don't have that. We don't even have Christians trusting many of the mainstream churches right now. What they're teaching and promoting is not biblical. Okay, and even someone like myself again, I know I'm not smart, but I can see the Bible says this, they're doing this, and they're not compatible. The Bible says don't do what you're doing, and they're saying, oh no, it's okay. All right, that's a problem. All right, well, all of our institutions now are corrupt. And there's great people in all of them. But then when we look at the leadership, well, that's why none of us trust the institutions. That's the most important thing for any institution, is for the people to trust it. And every institution has just completely wasted all of the social capital that it had built up over the decades. So that's my thought about the experts. And the experts I'm listening to right now, they're not mainstream, which that's why they're on Tucker Carlson's podcast. They're saying, get ready. I mean, we're in for some hard times financially. And what they're saying is matching my observations. So I'm trying to get ready. And yet you're listening to someone suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect. So, take this with a grain of salt. And I don't know much, but I do know that 2 plus 2 does not equal $37 trillion, which that's how far in debt we are. And this isn't just going to be okay. All right, these cycles have happened before. They're going to happen again. It's a continuous thing, just like the institutions. They're going to get corrupt, and they're either going to get replaced or reformed. We've got a lot of corrupt ones at the moment, and I think there's some reforms going on, but I still don't trust them, especially anything media related. God bless, and have a great day.